Marcus Chen sat in the back row of the Advanced Tactical Systems classroom, trying to make himself as invisible as possible among his towering alien classmates. At barely 6 feet tall, he was dwarfed by the average Korthak student who stood nearly 8 feet, and even the smallest Zephyrian in the class had 4 arms that could multitask weapon systems in ways humans could only dream of. The Galactic Military Academy on Nexus Prime was the most prestigious institution in known space, training the finest officers for the Coalition Defense Force. Out of 10,000 applicants each cycle, only 200 were accepted. Marcus had been the first human ever admitted. Much to the bewilderment of faculty and students alike, the primitive biped species was granted admission as a political gesture. He'd overheard Instructor Vexthal say during his first week, Earth's recent inclusion in the Coalition requires certain diplomatic considerations, even if their military capabilities are laughably outdated. 6 months later, Marcus had consistently ranked in the bottom quarter of his class. Not because he lacked intelligence or dedication, but because every system, every weapon, every piece of technology was designed for beings with different physiology, reaction times, and cognitive patterns. The standard plasma rifle was too heavy for sustained use with human musculature. The targeting interface required processing speeds that human neural networks couldn't match. Even the basic energy shields operated on frequencies that human bodies couldn't efficiently channel. Today, we examine close-quarters combat systems, Instructor Vexthal announced, his reptilian features twisted in what Marcus had learned was the Korthak equivalent of a stern expression. Each species will demonstrate their natural aptitude with traditional weapons of their homeworld. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Around him, his classmates straightened with obvious enthusiasm. This was the moment they'd been preparing for since the semester began. Cadet Thrixal, a mantis-like Vorthak, stepped forward first. With fluid motions, she assembled what looked like a crystalline staff from her personal kit. The weapon hummed with contained energy as she demonstrated a series of complex combat forms, the crystal tip leaving trails of superheated air with each precise strike. Her forearms moved independently, creating defensive patterns while maintaining offensive capability. The demonstration lasted 3 minutes and earned approving clicks from Vexthal. Next came Cadet Morgan, whose rocky granite homeworld had produced beings that were essentially living siege engines. He hefted a weapon that resembled a miniature cannon, its weight easily exceeding 300 pounds. The demonstration targets were obliterated with satisfying explosions, leaving smoking craters in the reinforced range wall. One by one, each species showcased weapons that perfectly complemented their evolved strengths. The aquatic Netherians demonstrated sonic disruptors that could function underwater. The gaseous ethereals showed how they could channel pure energy through their translucent forms. Even the diminutive Pixani, barely 3 feet tall, revealed weapons that utilized their natural electrical generation capabilities. With each demonstration, Marcus felt the weight of expectation growing heavier. What could he possibly show that would measure up to these displays of evolved warfare? Humans had no natural weapons, no specialized appendages, no unique energy manipulation abilities. They were, as Vexthal had noted in previous classes, baseline mammals with delusions of tactical sophistication. Cadet Chen, Vexthal's voice carried across the suddenly quiet classroom. You will demonstrate last. Marcus suspected this wasn't coincidence. Placing him at the end would ensure maximum humiliation when he inevitably failed to match his classmates' performances. He could already see some of the other cadets exchanging glances, probably placing bets on how badly the human would embarrass himself. What weapons did your species bring to share with the class? Vexthal continued, making no effort to hide his skeptical tone. Marcus stood slowly, feeling the weight of 40 pairs of alien eyes studying him. I don't have any weapons, sir. A ripple of confused, chittering and growling sounds filled the classroom. Several cadets made sounds that Marcus had learned indicated either amusement or pity, depending on the species. No weapons? Vexthal's scaled head tilted. Then, how exactly do you propose to complete this assignment, cadet? Marcus looked around the classroom, taking in the various pieces of equipment, furniture, and educational materials scattered around the space. Standard academy issue. reinforced polymer desks, flexible metal framework chairs designed to accommodate multiple body types, holographic projectors, training dummies, measurement tools, even decorative plants from various homeworlds meant to make the space more welcoming to diverse biologies. Permission to use materials available in the classroom, sir? The question clearly confused Vexthal. His reptilian features shifted into what Marcus recognized as the Korthak expression for processing unexpected information. You wish to improvise a weapon from classroom supplies? Yes, sir. Several of Marcus's classmates made sounds that definitely indicated amusement now. Cadet Thrixal's mandibles clicked rapidly in what passed for laughter among her species. The massive granite, Morgan, let out a sound like rocks grinding together that Marcus had learned meant deep skepticism. Vexthal considered for a moment, then gestured dismissively. Very well. You have 15 minutes to create your demonstration. This should prove educational for the entire class about the limitations of primitive improvisation versus proper military engineering. Marcus nodded and began moving around the classroom, examining various objects with careful attention. His classmates watched with barely contained amusement as he tested the flexibility of chair components, examined the structural integrity of desk elements, and studied the tensile properties of various cables and connectors. What is the primitive doing? He heard Cadet Zilmoth whisper to her neighbor. Is this some sort of human ritual before acknowledging defeat? Marcus ignored the commentary and continued his assessment. He'd spent his childhood on Earth's frontier colonies, where improvisation wasn't just useful, it was essential for survival. When supply ships came only twice a year, and the nearest manufacturing facility was 3 star systems away, you learned to work with what you had. He selected a chair with a particularly flexible metal frame, studying the joints and connection points. The polymer desktop from one of the student workstations would work, though he'd need to modify it significantly. The measurement cables had good tensile strength, and if he could find the right additional materials. 10 minutes remaining, Cadet Chen, Vexthal announced, his tone suggesting he was already preparing his post-demonstration lecture about human inadequacy. Marcus found what he needed in the emergency supply cabinet. Maintenance tools, spare components, and most importantly, a small molecular knife used for precision repairs. He began working quickly but methodically, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. The chair frame came apart easily once he identified the stress points. The metal was a polymer titanium composite. Lightweight, but incredibly strong and flexible. He selected 2 pieces of approximately equal length and began the careful process of joining them. His classmates' amusement gradually shifted to curiosity as they watched him work. This wasn't random, flailing, or desperate improvisation. Marcus moved with clear purpose, each action building toward some larger design. Using the molecular knife, he carefully shaped notches and curves in the metal pieces. The work required precision too deep, and he'd weaken the structure. Too shallow, and the components wouldn't function properly. Years of helping maintain colony equipment had given him an intuitive understanding of stress distribution and structural dynamics. The polymer desktop provided his next component. Using the same molecular knife, he cut a specific pattern from the material, creating what looked like a curved shield or plate. But as he began attaching it to his metal framework using the measurement cables, the true purpose became clear. Is he building something functional? Cadet Norval asked, his translator struggling with the ethereal's gaseous communication method. Marcus tested the flexibility of his construction, bending the framework and watching how the polymer component responded. The cables provided the tension system he needed, and a few more adjustments to the connection points would complete the mechanism. 5 minutes, Cadet, Vexthal called out, though his tone had shifted from dismissive to genuinely curious. Marcus made his final adjustments, testing each component individually before integrating them into the complete system. He'd need projectiles for the demonstration, but the classroom provided those as well. The styluses used for manual note-taking were polymer rods about 18 inches long, perfectly straight, and reasonably well balanced. With 2 minutes to spare, Marcus stood and examined his completed work. It wasn't elegant by modern standards, and it certainly didn't have the visual impact of his classmates' energy weapons and advanced combat systems. But it was functional, and for what he had in mind, that was all that mattered. Time remaining, Cadet Chen, Vexthal announced. Marcus walked to the front of the classroom, carrying his improvised construction and a handful of styluses. The room fell completely silent as his classmates tried to understand what they were looking at. "This is a bow, sir," Marcus explained, holding up his creation. "It's one of humanity's oldest ranged weapons, developed approximately 40,000 years ago." Vexthal's scaled features shifted into an expression Marcus couldn't interpret. "You've spent 15 minutes creating a historical curiosity?" "Yes, sir. But I think you'll find it's more effective than its age might suggest." Marcus positioned himself at the firing line, facing the same reinforced targets his classmates had used for their demonstrations. He selected one of the styluses, checking its balance and straightness. The polymer rod was heavier than a traditional arrow, but it would work for his purposes. "The bow operates on stored mechanical energy," he explained as he positioned the stylus against the improvised string. "Human muscle power is transferred to the projectile through elastic deformation and controlled release." He drew the string back, feeling the familiar resistance of the bent framework. The classroom setup wasn't ideal. He was shooting indoors at relatively short range with improvised materials, but it would serve to make his point. "The advantage of this system is its simplicity and reliability," Marcus continued, still holding the draw. "No power cells to drain, no complex targeting systems to malfunction, no energy signatures for enemies to track." Vexthal made a dismissive sound. "Primitive weapons have no place in modern warfare, Cadet. Your demonstration proves only that your species clings to outdated." Marcus released. The stylus flew across the classroom faster than most of his classmates could track, covering the 30-meter distance to the target in a fraction of a second. It struck dead center with a solid impact that vibrated through the reinforced material. The room fell completely silent. Marcus calmly selected another stylus and drew again. "The human nervous system evolved for persistence hunting," he said conversationally. "Our hand-eye coordination and spatial reasoning are specifically adapted for tracking moving targets and calculating ballistic trajectories." The second shot struck within millimeters of the first. "Furthermore," Marcus continued, loading a third projectile, "the bow requires no external power source and can be manufactured from available materials in virtually any environment." The third shot split the second stylus down the middle. Cadet Thrixel's mandibles had stopped clicking. Morgan's rocky features had shifted into what Marcus was pretty sure indicated surprise among his species. Even the ethereal Norval had condensed into a more focused form, suggesting intense attention. Marcus lowered the bow and turned to face Instructor Vexthal. "Will that be sufficient for the demonstration, sir?" Vexthal stared at the target, where 3 styluses had been placed with inhuman precision, using a weapon constructed entirely from classroom materials in under 15 minutes. When he spoke, his voice carried a tone Marcus had never heard from him before. "Class dismissed. Cadet Chen, remain behind." As his classmates filed out in unusual silence, Marcus began to suspect that his demonstration had accomplished more than he'd intended. The looks he was receiving ranged from newfound respect to something that might have been concern. He had a feeling tomorrow's classes were going to be very different from today's. The classroom emptied slowly, with Marcus's fellow cadets casting backward glances as they filed through the doorway. He could see them clustering in small groups just outside, their various forms of communication creating a buzz of clicks, growls, and harmonic resonances that suggested intense discussion. Instructor Vexthal approached the target wall, his scaled hands running over the impact points where the styluses had struck. The reinforced material was designed to withstand plasma bursts and kinetic rounds from military-grade weapons. Yet the improvised arrows had embedded themselves deeply into the surface. "Remarkable precision," Vexthal muttered, more to himself than to Marcus. He attempted to remove one of the styluses and had to apply considerable force before it came free. The kinetic energy transfer is far higher than the primitive appearance would suggest. Marcus stood at attention, uncertain whether he was about to be commended or reprimanded. In his 6 months at the academy, he'd learned that exceeding expectations wasn't always viewed favorably, especially when it challenged fundamental assumptions about species capabilities. "Sir, if I violated any protocols..." "You haven't," Vexthal interrupted. His reptilian features, shifting into what Marcus had learned, indicated deep thought among the Korthak. But your demonstration raises questions that extend far beyond this classroom. The instructor walked back to his desk, accessing his personal interface with quick movements of his clawed hands. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing what appeared to be historical and tactical databases. Tell me, Cadet Chen, how long did it take you to achieve this level of accuracy? Marcus considered the question carefully. With improvised equipment and unfamiliar materials? This was my first attempt, sir. Vexthal's head snapped up. First attempt? Yes, sir. Though I've been using similar weapons since I was 12 years old. My colony world required proficiency with primitive tools as a backup for technological failures. Show me the construction process again, Vexthal ordered. In detail. Marcus moved to another chair, beginning the disassembly process while explaining each step. The key is understanding material properties and stress distribution. Korthak furniture uses memory alloys that return to original shape after deformation. But if you work with the molecular structure instead of against it, he demonstrated how to identify the optimal flex points, how to create efficient leverage systems, and how to balance power storage with control accuracy. What had appeared to be random improvisation was revealed as systematic engineering based on deep understanding of physical principles. The targeting system is purely biological, Marcus continued as he strung the second bow. Human visual processing is optimized for tracking moving objects across three-dimensional space. We calculate trajectory, wind resistance, and target movement instinctively. Vexthal observed silently as Marcus repeated his demonstration with the second bow, placing 3 more shots with identical precision. When Marcus finished, the instructor was accessing multiple database entries simultaneously. According to our xenobiology files, humans evolved as endurance hunters, Vexthal said slowly. Your species pursued prey animals across vast distances until they collapsed from exhaustion. That's correct, sir. But these files indicate no significant ranged combat capabilities. Your species is classified as close-quarters specialists with minimal projectile weapon aptitude. Marcus hesitated. Sir, our xenobiology files might be incomplete. Incomplete how? Earth's history includes thousands of years of projectile weapon development. Bows, crossbows, slings, spear throwers. Human military doctrine was based on ranged supremacy long before we developed gunpowder weapons. Vexthal's clawed fingers moved rapidly across his interface. Our intelligence reports stated that humans achieved spaceflight primarily through luck and crude chemical propulsion. Your species was described as barely capable of basic tool use. Sir, with respect, whoever compiled those reports may have had access to limited information. The instructor's reptilian features shifted into an expression Marcus couldn't interpret. Or deliberately misleading information. Before Marcus could respond, the classroom door chimed. Vexthal activated the entry permission, and 3 figures entered that made Marcus's stomach clench with apprehension. Admiral Threxon, the Academy Commandant, led the group. The massive Korthak stood nearly 9 feet tall and commanded respect from every species in the coalition. Behind him came Director Vexasnal, head of tactical studies, and Colonel Morthak from the Strategic Planning Division. Instructor Vexthal. Admiral Threxon's voice carried the authority of absolute command. We've received reports of an unusual demonstration in your classroom. Yes, Admiral. Cadet Chen constructed a primitive projectile weapon and achieved remarkable accuracy results. Director Vexanal moved to examine the targets, her forearms working independently to measure impact depth and dispersion patterns. These strikes suggest professional-level marksmanship training. Has this cadet received specialized instruction? No, ma'am, Marcus replied. Standard colony education includes basic survival skills. Colonel Morthak accessed his personal interface. Holographic displays showing tactical analyses. Our xenobiology division classifies human military potential as minimal. This demonstration contradicts established assessments. Admiral Threxon approached Marcus directly. At full height, the Korthak towered over the human cadet. But Marcus maintained his position at attention, despite feeling like prey being evaluated by a predator. Cadet Chen, construct another weapon. Different design. Sir, you heard the order. Show us what else your primitive species can improvise. Marcus glanced around the classroom, identifying different materials and potential construction approaches. This time, he selected components from the holographic projector array, using the precision lenses and focusing crystals along with structural elements from the environmental control system. Working more quickly now, he constructed what appeared to be a much simpler device. A Y-shaped frame carved from desk polymer, with elastic bands salvaged from equipment storage containers. The result looked like a child's toy compared to his bow construction. A sling launcher, he explained, loading a small metal component from the projector assembly. Different principle of operation, but similar effective range and accuracy potential. The demonstration target had been moved back to 50 meters to account for the increased power. Marcus tested the pull tension, made a minor adjustment to the projectile seating, and fired. The metal component struck the target with enough force to crack the reinforced material. Effective range? Colonel Morthok asked, his tactical mind clearly working through implications. Depends on projectile mass and available materials, sir. Under optimal conditions, potentially effective to 300 meters. Director Vexnal's mandibles clicked rapidly. Construction time from available resources? 5 to 10 minutes for basic functionality. Less if proper materials are pre-selected. Admiral Threxon's scaled features showed deep consideration. Cadet Chen. You will report to Strategic Assessment Division tomorrow at 0600 hours. Sir, there appears to be a significant discrepancy between official intelligence assessments and demonstrated capabilities. This discrepancy requires investigation. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Investigation by the Strategic Assessment Division wasn't necessarily a positive development. Am I being removed from regular class rotation, sir? Negative. You will maintain your current academic schedule while participating in expanded evaluation protocols. Instructor Vexthal stepped forward. Admiral, if I may suggest, Cadet Chen's abilities appear to be representative of standard human capabilities rather than exceptional individual talent. A broader assessment of human military potential might be warranted. Agreed. Admiral Threxon replied. Colonel Morthok. Initiate a comprehensive review of our xenobiology files on human species. Cross-reference with historical databases and request updated intelligence from Earth Territorial Command. Colonel Morthok's tactical displays flickered as he implemented the orders. Admiral. Preliminary data suggests significant gaps in our understanding of human technological development and military doctrine. How significant? Our files indicate humans achieved spaceflight approximately 50 years ago through crude chemical propulsion. However, their admission to the coalition required technological capabilities that suggest much more sophisticated development. Director Vex, Nal moved closer to examine Marcus's improvised weapons. These construction techniques demonstrate advanced understanding of materials science and engineering principles. The precision suggests extensive training or natural aptitude far exceeding our assessments. Cadet Chen, Admiral Threxon said, your species' application for coalition membership included detailed technological and military capability reports. Are those reports accurate? Marcus hesitated. Sir, I wasn't involved in the diplomatic process, but human military capabilities might be more extensive than your current files indicate. Elaborate. Sir, humans have been developing military technology for thousands of years. We've fought wars across every environment on our planet, developed tactics for every possible scenario, and created weapons systems adapted to virtually unlimited resource constraints. Colonel Morthok's displays showed increasing activity as data searches expanded. Admiral, Earth's historical databases show continuous military conflict spanning recorded civilization. Weapon development includes projectile systems, chemical weapons, nuclear devices, and advanced energy systems. And our intelligence reports classified them as barely tool-capable primitives. Admiral Threxon said grimly. Sir, Marcus ventured. It's possible that Earth's diplomatic corps presented a deliberately conservative assessment of our capabilities. Why would they do that? Marcus chose his words carefully. In human military doctrine, being underestimated is often considered a tactical advantage. The silence that followed was profound. Four of the most senior military minds in Coalition space contemplated the implications of a species that had deliberately concealed their true capabilities during the admission process. Cadet Chen, Admiral Threk, Sun finally said, tomorrow's assessment will include comprehensive evaluation of human tactical doctrine, weapon systems, and strategic capabilities. You will provide complete and accurate information. Yes, sir. And Cadet? Sir? If your species has been misrepresenting their military potential, this Academy, and the Coalition, will need to make significant adjustments to our strategic planning. As the senior officers filed out, Marcus was left alone with Instructor Vexthal, who was still examining the improvised weapons with obvious fascination. Cadet Chen, the instructor said quietly, I believe tomorrow will be a very interesting day for everyone involved. Marcus gathered his improvised weapons, wondering if he'd just accidentally triggered a major diplomatic incident. He had a feeling that his demonstration had revealed far more than anyone had expected, and the consequences were only beginning to unfold. Marcus arrived at Strategic Assessment Division headquarters 30 minutes early, partly from nerves and partly from habit. The facility occupied the entire top floor of the Academy's central command tower, offering panoramic views of Nexus Prime's sprawling cityscape through reinforced transparent barriers. The assessment chamber itself was unlike anything Marcus had seen during his 6 months at the Academy. Banks of recording equipment lined the walls. Holographic projectors created three-dimensional tactical displays, and monitoring systems tracked everything from biometric data to electromagnetic emissions. Clearly, this evaluation would be far more comprehensive than a simple demonstration. Admiral Threk, Sun stood at the center of the chamber, alongside a collection of senior officers Marcus didn't recognize. Representatives from multiple species, all bearing insignia indicating high-level intelligence and strategic planning positions. Whatever his improvised bow demonstration had triggered, it was being taken very seriously indeed. Cadet Chen, report to Position Alpha, Colonel Morthok directed, indicating a platform surrounded by scanning equipment. As Marcus complied, Director Vex now accessed multiple holographic interfaces simultaneously. Cadet, we've spent the last 18 hours reviewing available data on human military capabilities. Our findings have been enlightening. The main tactical display activated, showing what appeared to be historical footage from Earth. Marcus recognized images from various human conflicts, though the resolution and detail suggested these recordings had been obtained through advanced surveillance rather than official diplomatic channels. Our intelligence division has discovered that Earth's diplomatic submission included approximately 12% of actual human military technological capability, Admiral Threk, Sun announced. The remainder appears to have been deliberately classified or omitted entirely. Marcus maintained his position at attention while processing the implications. If the Coalition had been monitoring human military development without official acknowledgement, the diplomatic situation was more complex than he'd understood. Furthermore, Colonel Morthok continued, analysis of human tactical doctrine reveals approaches that are fundamentally different from established Coalition strategic principles. The tactical display shifted to show comparative analyses between human and alien military systems. Marcus could see immediately what had captured their attention. Where most Coalition species developed weapons and tactics around their natural evolutionary advantages, humans had created systems that amplified their weaknesses into strengths. Observe, Director Vex, Nal said, highlighting specific data points. Korthak military doctrine emphasizes individual physical superiority and direct confrontation, reflecting our evolutionary development as apex predators. Vorthak tactics utilize swarm coordination and rapid movement, consistent with their insect ancestry. The display showed tactical simulations of various alien combat approaches, each clearly optimized around specific biological advantages. Human military doctrine appears to operate on entirely different principles, Admiral Threk, Sun observed. Rather than leveraging natural advantages, your species compensates for physical limitations through tool development and tactical innovation. Marcus nodded carefully. That's accurate, sir. Humans evolved as persistence hunters and cooperative social animals. Our military development reflected those traits. Elaborate, Colonel Moore, Thack ordered. Sir, human military doctrine is based on force multiplication, tactical flexibility, and operational unpredictability. We developed weapons and strategies that allowed smaller, weaker forces to defeat larger, stronger opponents through superior planning and execution. The tactical display shifted to show human military historical examples. Marcus recognized battle formations, siege warfare, naval tactics, and asymmetric warfare strategies, spanning thousands of years of conflict. Your improvised weapons demonstration suggests these principles extend to individual combat capabilities, Director Vex, Null noted. Can you construct effective weapons from arbitrary available materials? Yes, ma'am. Human military training emphasizes improvisation and adaptation to local conditions. Demonstrate, Admiral Threck, Sun commanded. Marcus surveyed the assessment chamber, identifying potential construction materials among the sophisticated equipment. The challenge was greater here than in the classroom. Everything was precision engineered rather than improvised friendly furniture. He selected components from the holographic projection system, using focusing crystals, structural supports, and power transmission cables. Working methodically, he constructed what appeared to be a crossbow-style mechanism. Though the energy-focusing crystals served as the projectile acceleration system, rather than traditional elastic storage. This design uses controlled energy discharge rather than mechanical stress, Marcus explained as he worked. The crystals focus and direct power from the chamber's ambient energy systems, creating a projectile weapon that's actually more powerful than traditional mechanical approaches. The completed weapon looked like a fusion of primitive design principles with advanced alien technology. Marcus loaded a metal component from the scanning equipment and aimed at a designated target 50 meters away. The energy-accelerated projectile struck with enough force to penetrate completely through the reinforced target material and embed itself in the chamber's rear wall. Colonel Moore, Thack's tactical displays showed readings that made several of the assembled officers step backward. Energy transfer efficiency exceeds 90%. That's higher than our standard military plasma rifles. And construction time was under 10 minutes, using unfamiliar materials. Director Vex, Null added. This suggests human improvisational capabilities are not limited to primitive technology. Admiral Threck, Sun approached the embedded projectile, examining the penetration depth with obvious concern. Cadet Chen, is this level of improvisational weapon construction standard for human military training? Sir, this would be considered basic field engineering. Advanced specialists can construct much more sophisticated systems from available materials. More sophisticated how? Marcus hesitated, realizing he was potentially revealing information that Earth's diplomatic corps had chosen to keep classified. But direct orders from Coalition Military Command took precedence over possible diplomatic considerations. Sir, human military engineers can construct communication systems, surveillance networks, defensive fortifications, and coordinated weapons platforms from virtually any industrial environment. Our Special Forces training includes improvised explosive devices, electronic warfare systems, and tactical nuclear weapons using materials commonly available in civilian settings. The silence that followed was profound. Marcus could see the assembled officers exchanging glances that clearly indicated alarm. Tactical nuclear weapons, Admiral Threck, Sun repeated slowly. From civilian materials. Yes, sir. Human military doctrine assumes that conflict may occur in environments where supply lines are compromised and standard equipment is unavailable. Colonel Moore, Thack's displays showed rapidly updating tactical assessments. Admiral, if these capabilities are representative of standard human military training, our strategic assessment of Earth's defensive potential requires complete revision. Agreed, Admiral Threck, Sun replied grimly. Director Vex, Null. Initiate immediate contact with Earth Territorial Command. We need complete disclosure of human military capabilities. Sir, Marcus interrupted carefully. If I may suggest, Earth's military leadership might be more cooperative if they understood that full disclosure would be viewed positively rather than as a potential threat. Explain. Sir, human strategic thinking includes the concept of deterrence through demonstrated capability. If the coalition recognizes human military potential, it strengthens Earth's position as a valuable alliance partner rather than a dependent client state. Admiral Threk. Sun's reptilian features shifted into what Marcus had learned indicated deep consideration among the Korthak. You're suggesting that your species deliberately understated their capabilities to avoid being perceived as a threat during the admission process. That would be consistent with human diplomatic and military doctrine, sir. Director Vex. Now accessed communication systems throughout the chamber. Admiral. Earth Territorial Command is requesting immediate priority conference with Coalition Strategic Command. They're monitoring our assessment of their cadet? Unknown, sir. The communication request was filed approximately 6 hours ago. Suggesting they anticipated this development, Marcus felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. Earth's military leadership had apparently predicted that his academy performance would eventually trigger exactly this type of investigation. Conference granted, Admiral Threk, Sun decided. Cadet Chen, you will participate in this briefing as our primary source on human military capabilities. The main tactical display shifted to show incoming communication from Earth. Marcus recognized the insignia of Terran Strategic Command, though the specific individuals in the conference were unfamiliar to him. Admiral Threk, Sun. The lead human representative began. I'm General Harrison, Earth Strategic Command. We understand you have questions about human military capabilities. General Harrison, our assessment of your species' military potential appears to have been significantly understated during your coalition admission process. That's correct, Admiral. We felt it was prudent to provide conservative estimates until we better understood coalition strategic dynamics. Colonel Moore, Thak stepped forward. General, our cadet has demonstrated improvisational weapon construction capabilities that suggest advanced military engineering training. Is this representative of standard human military capability? Cadet Chen's abilities are consistent with basic human military education, General Harrison confirmed. Though I should note that he's actually received minimal formal training compared to our specialized personnel. The assembled coalition officers exchanged glances that clearly indicated alarm. General, Admiral Threk, Sun said carefully. We would appreciate a more comprehensive briefing on human military capabilities and strategic doctrine. Of course, Admiral. Though I should mention that such a briefing would necessarily include information about human defensive capabilities that might be relevant to coalition strategic planning. Marcus realized he was witnessing the beginning of a major shift in human-coalition relations. His improvised bow demonstration had somehow triggered a complete reassessment of Earth's role in galactic politics. Furthermore, General Harrison continued, Earth Strategic Command would like to propose expanded military cooperation between human forces and coalition defense systems. We believe our tactical approaches might offer valuable contributions to mutual defense planning. What kind of contributions? Director Vex, Null asked. Admiral, human military doctrine excels in asymmetric warfare, tactical improvisation, and adaptive strategy development. These capabilities would complement existing coalition strengths while providing defensive options against unconventional threats. Admiral Threk, Sun nodded slowly. General Harrison, we accept your proposal for expanded briefings. However, we'll require complete disclosure of human military capabilities. Agreed, Admiral. Though I suspect you'll find our capabilities more extensive than your current assessments indicate. As the conference continued, Marcus found himself thinking about his fellow cadets and how they would react to these revelations. 6 months ago, he had been the token human, barely capable of keeping up with his alien classmates. Now it appeared that his species represented a fundamentally different approach to warfare that the coalition had never encountered. When the briefing concluded, Admiral Threk, Sun approached Marcus directly. Cadet Chen, effective immediately, you are reassigned to Advanced Tactical Studies with accelerated progression toward commissioned officer status. Sir, furthermore, you will serve as liaison between human military doctrine and coalition tactical development. Your species appears to offer strategic perspectives that the coalition defense force would benefit from understanding. Marcus stood at attention, realizing that his improvised bow demonstration had fundamentally changed not just his own situation, but potentially the entire relationship between humanity and the galactic community. "And Cadet?" Admiral Threck, Sun added. "Sir, next week's Advanced Tactical Studies seminar will focus on human military history and strategic development. You'll be instructing the class." "Oh, yes." As Marcus left the assessment chamber, he passed groups of his fellow cadets in the corridor. The looks he received now were very different from the dismissive glances he'd grown accustomed to. Word had apparently spread about the morning's evaluation and its results. "Cadet Thrix," Al approached as he reached the main academy corridor. "Marcus," she said, using his first name for the first time since he'd arrived at the academy. "Is it true that humans have been hiding their military capabilities?" "Not hiding," Marcus replied carefully. "Just being appropriately cautious about first impressions." Cadet Moore, Gan, the massive granite, made a sound that indicated thoughtful consideration. "Your demonstration yesterday was not the result of individual talent. No, basic human military education includes improvisational engineering and adaptive tactics." Cadet Noor, Val, the ethereal, condensed into a more focused form. "Our tactical studies assume that species optimize around their evolutionary advantages. How do humans optimize around having no particular advantages?" Marcus smiled. "That's exactly the point. When you don't have natural advantages, you learn to create them. And you learn to adapt them to any situation you encounter." As he walked toward his next class, Marcus realized that his time as the underestimated human cadet was over. But his education in galactic military strategy was just beginning, and now it would involve teaching as much as learning. The Coalition was about to discover that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or tactics. It was their refusal to accept limitations as permanent conditions. The instructor had asked for a weapons display, and Marcus had built a bow from classroom items. But what he'd really demonstrated was something much more significant: that humans approached warfare as a problem to be solved, rather than a contest of natural abilities. And that difference was about to change everything.